Today's video is going to be about angle relationships. First, we'll start with vertical angles. Vertical angles are two angles across from each other on intersecting lines, and they are always congruent. So that might look like this. We have two intersecting lines, and angle 1, 2, 3, and 4. So angles 1 and 2 are vertical, and angles 3 and 4 are vertical. What that means is angle 1 is going to be congruent to angle 2, and angle 3 is going to be congruent to angle 4. Adjacent angles are two angles that are next to each other and share a common side. So that would look like this. We would have angle 1 and angle 2. And those two angles would be adjacent because they share this common side. Complementary angles are two angles whose sum is 90 degrees. So 90 degrees, as we recall, is like this. It is a right angle. And in order for the angles to add up to 90 degrees, it would look something like this. So it could be these two angles. Angles 1 and 2 would be complementary angles. Supplementary angles are any two angles whose sum is 180 degrees. So an example might be this angle that is 145 degrees and this angle that is 35 degrees. If we add those together, we would get 180 degrees. These angles can touch each other, but as we'll see in the next section, that is called something else. So a linear pair is two angles that form a straight line. So even though we already know that supplementary angles add up to 180 and therefore would also make a straight line, if they touch, if they are also adjacent, so angles 1 and 2, then these are a linear pair, okay? They have to be adjacent and supplementary to be a linear pair. So let's practice identifying these. So these two angles are across from each other. That makes them vertical angles. Adjacent angles share a side. These do not share a side. Complementary angles add up to 90 degrees. There is nothing to say that these add up to 90. Supplementary angles add up to 180. There's nothing to say that that is true here. And a linear pair has to be adjacent and supplementary. So since it's neither of those, it cannot be a linear pair. So that is all for number 1. On number 2, we have angle 1 and angle 2. These two angles are adjacent because they do share a side. They are not vertical angles because vertical angles are across from each other. Complementary means they add up to 90 degrees. Since this is a straight line and this is 90 degrees, that means this side also is 90 degrees. Therefore, 1 and 2 are, in fact, complementary angles. Supplementary would mean they would add to 180. They cannot be both complementary and supplementary, so that's out. A linear pair has to be adjacent and supplementary. Since these are not supplementary, they cannot be a linear pair. Number 3, angles 1 and 2. They are adjacent because they do share a common side. Vertical angles would be across from each other. They are not vertical angles. Complementary angles add up to 90 degrees. These two angles together are not 90 degrees, but they are 180 degrees because when you put these together, they form a straight line. Now, if the angles are adjacent and supplementary, they have to also be a linear pair. Number 4, 1 and 2 are adjacent angles because they share a common side. They are not vertical angles because they are not across from each other on intersecting lines. They are not complementary because it is not told to us that this is a 90-degree angle. In fact, it looks obtuse. They are not supplementary because they do not form 180 degrees, and they cannot be linear because they are not adjacent and supplementary. Adjacent angles, once again, share a side. Angles 1 and 2 do not share a side. Vertical angles are across from each other on intersecting lines. This does in fact satisfy all of those things, and they are vertical. Complementary means that they add up to 90 degrees. Since this angle is congruent to this angle, and these two angles add up to 90, then 1 and 2 also must add up to 90 degrees. So these are complementary. They cannot be supplementary if they are complementary, and they cannot be a linear pair if they are not adjacent and supplementary. All right, before we get started on number 6, notice that these two lines intersect at a 90-degree angle. If one of those angles is 90, they are all 90. So 1 and 2, they are not adjacent because they do not share a side. They are vertical because they are across from each other. They are not complementary because they do not add up to 90 degrees. They are each 90 degrees, making them supplementary because they add up to 180. But they are not a linear pair because they are not adjacent. All right, that is all for today's video. Thank you for watching and have a great day.